Welcome, everybody, to our first webinar of 2024. We are deep into the unicameral policies part of our year, and so that's what you're joining us here for today. We're going to kind of go through a couple of things, including our annual meeting for the day. Our annual meeting for the year, so we can give you an idea of what we're looking over. So we're going to first start with our annual report, and I'm going to talk through what our strategic work plan for 2024 looks like. If you've joined us over the webinars or our summit over the last with the last year or so, some of these topics will definitely look more familiar to you as we do a 3-year strategic plan, and then we kind of build off of it year after year. And so we're still kind of within that 3-year window. And then Julie and Taylor are going to take us into our policy areas of focus, talk about what our strategy for the year is, and what bills we're watching. And then, of course, kind of breaking down what advocacy could look like for you all to get involved on the statewide level. Okay, we have a few more folks joining us in, so just give me 1 second to get them settled, and I will kick off into our annual report and our strategic plan. Okay. So first things first, this is our vision as Walk Nebraska. We envision a state where bicycling and walking are a safe and enjoyable part of the good life. And that is the vision that we always hold true as we are making any of our strategic plans and decisions, and ensuring that we are pursuing our mission to the best of our ability throughout the years. So the ways that we're doing that in 2024, and starting these headers in 2023, but this is how we're dialing it down into this year, as we are going to continue to engage in vibrant, active tourism. And so that is going to look like producing a rural trail town toolkit, which will be focused on policy and encouragement. So we can help our Nebraska trail towns really leverage those active tourism opportunities. We're going to continue our work with the Nebraska Department of Transportation to improve policies and standards around trail locations, because connectivity is incredibly important. We're going to keep working with the Cowboy Trail Coalition. There's a lot of great things coming down the pipeline for the coalition this year, so do stay tuned for that. And then obviously, if you've spent time in rural Nebraska or you're familiar with it, you know that the bike shop desert is a very real barrier to entry for anyone looking to get into cycling kind of out of the main metropolitan areas. So we're going to begin sourcing some funding options and what feasible setups for a rural bike shop could look like in the other parts of our state. Next, we're going to continue expanding our robust community outreach. Last year, our really big pillar of this was our Learn to Ride classes, which teach adults and older teens who have either never ridden a bike or they haven't ridden a bike in a really long time, the basic bike skills 101. And we did this in partnership with Heartland Bike Share and supported by Omaha Community Foundation. And it was a spectacular launch of the program. So that's something that we're really focusing on this year. In Omaha, we are in the process of establishing some long-term programming in partnership with the Riverfront. We have identified a few Nebraska communities that we want to expand our Learn to Ride classes in, so they're not only offered in the metropolitan areas. We will also be facilitating a League of American Bicyclists certified instructor training course, and targeting, making sure we have a wide range of geographical locations and attendance for that, so that it helps facilitate more classes and people can kind of pick up this programming in their own communities. And then obviously we will be continuing our educational webinars like this and hosting our annual Bike Walk Summit. I should take a moment to pause and say, if you have questions throughout this, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So please do just drop the questions in the chat. You can send them throughout the webinar and we'll get through them at the end of the presentation today. And so then our third pillar of focus for 2024 is generating capacity for local advocacy. We are the statewide organization, and as much as we would love to be able to really dig our feet into every regional or local active transportation opportunity that exists, that's not a feasible option for us. And honestly, the local advocates are going to be the experts in this field. So what we're working to do is equip and educate advocates and help them generate capacity for what they're able to do. What this is going to look like is we are going to be creating a first of its kind digital policy database. This is something that we're really, really excited for in 2024. It's going to be an interactive map that highlights that if you're living in Hastings, you can click on it and you can see what city officials you need to talk to be able to advocate with and to look at your city ordinances. And we really believe that this is going to help harness the capabilities of the local advocates. We are going to be launching a statewide fundraiser called Bike Walk Give Day. If you're familiar with the 24-hour online giving platforms that have existed in the past, like a Give to Lincoln Day, or I'm going to use Hastings as an example again because that's familiar to me, Give Hastings Day. We're doing this across the state for fellow biking and walking and trail and active transportation nonprofits. So that'll be coming up in 2024 as well. We're going to be catalyzing equitable e-bike policy conversations with municipalities, building off of the policy that was passed in the legislature last year. And then we will continue to advance safety and transportation legislation on state and local levels because policy is the longest lasting source of sustainable change that we can put into place as an advocacy organization. So we're going to be continuing our work from 2023, building off of the things that we implemented last year into 2024, and really setting ourselves up for success come 2025 to finish out this 3-year strategic planning session. Okay, and now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, where we're going to be talking about what our bills we're tracking for active transportation. And this is where I get to hand it off to my phenomenal coworkers who have been spearheading this efforts, Julie and Taylor.
Thank you. Don't forget that phenomenal coworker that was just talking to you is Kate Dumas-Hine. She is our Associate Director of Bike Walk Nebraska. Very grateful to have her with us. And I want to also introduce you to somebody you're going to be hearing from throughout the webinar, and that's Taylor Sturba. She is fairly new to our staff, but feels like she's been here for a long time. She's just jumped right in. She's our communications and outreach manager for Bike Walk Nebraska, does a lot of policy work for us, and has just been a phenomenal addition to our team. So you'll be hearing more from Taylor as we go. Before we get started, I just want to give a brief explanation of how we go about making our policy platform so that you all know how we arrived at these decisions. The first 10 days of the unicameral session are the time for new bills to be introduced. It's a 10-day window. So Taylor and I every day would sit down and look through all of the bills that had been introduced, flag any bills that have anything to do with transportation, active transportation, land use. There's a wide variety of things that might apply either directly or tangentially to our work. Once we get that full list put together, we had a meeting with our policy committee, and I see at least one person from our policy committee on the call today, Brent Davis. We went through all of the bills with the policy committee, along with what our staff recommendation would be, whether we're proponents, opponents, or neutral on the bills. The policy committee sort of had a really robust conversation, which was really great. And then we arrived at our official stance, which we are going to be presenting today and will live on our website. So we're going to go through a handful of bills here that we want you to know about, that we are tracking closely. And we're going to start out with Taylor taking the first one here. Oh, forgot. Well, Taylor's also going to explain a little bit more about this.
Yeah, like Julie talked about, active transportation goes beyond just roads and bikes and walking and all of that. It's not purely transportation focused. It intersects with infrastructure, education, mobility, just a lot of different aspects of our lives. So we tried to take an intersectional lens to looking at policy and flagging what we think revolves around kind of our active transportation area. So the first one we came across was LB 966, introduced by Senator DeKay. It was brought to him by the Nebraska Department of Transportation. The main part of this bill that we are focused on and we are proponents of is that vehicular traffic should yield the right of way to pedestrians within crosswalks. The little caveat we have is that we did pass a bill in 2016 mentioning the right of way for bicyclists. So we are consulting with the legal counsel for the transportation committee to seeing if we need to include that language in this bill as well, so that we are protecting all vulnerable road users, including bicyclists.
Taylor, I'll just jump in real quick and say that the big change for this one is that it pertains to flashing yellow turn arrows, which are fairly new to Nebraska, but proliferating across the state. So that's what's different about this, is the flashing yellow turn arrows.
Thank you, Julie.
Sorry about that.
Then we kind of have a dual bill, 1033 and 1340, introduced by Senator Lippincott and Senator Kauth. Both of them are addressing the issue of texting while driving, changing it from a secondary offense to a primary offense. Senator Kauth's bill has a lot more provisions to it, but we're monitoring both based on the distracted driving law. While we believe distracted driving is a problem and we do want that addressed so that all road users feel safe, relying on enforcement alone will not solve the safety issues we have. It's also very hard to enforce, which is what the Transportation Committee kind of brought up during their hearing this past week for LB 1033. They talked to a sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department said, well, we can kind of see that they're on their phone, but we can't like guarantee that we know they're texting. So while it is a good first step and it's a great thought, we do want to reiterate that enforcement is not the only way to address this issue.
Okay, I'll take the next two. LB 1065 and 1066 were introduced by Senator Lowe, and he represents the Kearney area. These kind of came as a surprise when we saw these pop up. These are basically zoning issues that are being addressed, and therefore in the Urban Affairs Committee, which is a committee we don't interact with very often. But right now, it can be a little confusing, but right now many city ordinances prevent people from building duplexes on their lots. Most of the time, those lots are zoned for single family houses only. And so therefore, according to the zoning regulation, you're not allowed to build a duplex on a single family lot. This particular bill would provide for a statewide statute that would allow for building duplexes on single family lots. LB 1066 is very similar. Right now, if you have they're called granny flats. If your lovely in-laws need a place to live and you want to build a small unit for them in your backyard, make it safe, plumbing, electric, everything, basically make a little tiny house for them on your lot. In many cases, in almost all cases, I believe that is not allowed in zoning codes. You're not allowed to build those accessory dwelling units in your backyard. This would put into state statute that you would be making sure, of course, that you meet all of the other code ordinances. You would be willing or you would be able to build that on your lot. This is one that you may wonder why we're getting involved in, but as you can see there, we definitely want to encourage and support higher density, meaning more people in our, more people per square mile in our towns and cities, because that type of an environment is more hospitable to transit, to active transportation in general. It provides for a more livable, better quality of life, all these things in our cities that then trickle down to the transportation issue. The downside to this particular take on it is that this is the state getting involved in local ordinance, and we're not necessarily very excited about that precedent being set. But this is a very progressive way of going about zoning. We definitely would love to see it. And so we're sort of going to be proponents of this with that basic concern about, we don't necessarily need the state honing in on local ordinances on a regular basis.
The next one we are in very clear support for. It's LB 1250, introduced by Senator John Kavanaugh. This was kind of done with the support and help of Benny from Roam Share, which includes Heartland Bike Share, Bike Link, and Valentine Bike Share as well. But this is providing grants for bike sharing programs. We are all for expanding access and equitability to all bike users. And this would be a great first step to getting them to more communities.
All right, I'll take this one. LB 1357. This was introduced by Senator McDonnell. He represents sort of South Central Omaha. And this one is in the Judiciary Committee. This particular bill would prohibit camping on certain property owned by political subdivision. In other words, it would prevent camping. It would make it illegal to camp on city streets, on medians, within city right-of-way. And this also includes in the trail right-of-ways, or under, for instance, under an underpass that a trail uses that goes under an underpass, which happens quite frequently in the Omaha and Lincoln areas. This was introduced because there is, I think Senator McDonnell sees this as there is an issue in Omaha with some of this happening. There's been some things in the news about it. There's been some work to try to figure out how to solve this issue. And so because of the trail aspect of this, we are definitely going to monitor this very closely. However, we are going to remain neutral on this particular bill. We want to lead with compassion. We want to make sure that we are not criminalizing homelessness, that we're not criminalizing people who are experiencing homelessness, and therefore we're not going to just be a flat out proponent of this. We hope that this bill will result in getting more people around the table to try to address safety issues that are a concern for people, but again, leading with compassion. And we hope that we can be at that table as part of those conversations and part of those discussions to make sure that the safety of trail users and bike lane users and sidewalk users is maintained, with finding a way to not criminalize this in general. So stay tuned on this one. I'm sure it'll be a hot button issue in the Judiciary Committee, and we'll be monitoring it closely. Okay, this last one is it's kind of a bill, but it's not really a bill, but it's something that we are keeping a very close eye on. LB 121 was introduced last session. It's a carryover bill from last session. It was introduced by Senator Bostelman. He is the chair of the Natural Resources Committee. Of course, when we first saw repeal the Trail Development Assistance Act, that most certainly was a red flag that we jumped on immediately, especially because the language that it strikes in this bill pertains directly to the Cowboy Trail Development Assistance Fund. When we called Senator Bostelman's office, his staff told us that they introduced this to be a shell bill for the committee, that it doesn't really mean that what it says in the bill. And basically what a shell bill does is that anything that's going to get passed in the Unicam needs to have a public hearing. But if something comes up after the public hearings are over and they need to try to get a bill through, they will go back and use this particular bill as a way to get it through. It's very, it's just a process that they use. It's not a process that I'm a fan of necessarily. So we've been assured that this is not really what it says. This is just administrative behind the scenes. That's what the statement of intent says on the Unicameral website, and we'll show you a picture of the website, how to check on these things in a bit here. But we are keeping a very close eagle eye on this, because the last thing we would want to do is to find out, oh, wait, they changed their minds or something else changed that we weren't aware of. So we don't anticipate this being a problem. We've been assured that it's not, but the good advocates that we are, we're keeping an eagle eye on this one.
And if any of these bills or others, if you watch the legislature, have caught your eye, there are many different ways you can state your proposition, opposition. If you're in the neutral, you can make your voice heard regarding any bills introduced. So you can contact your senator, you can email them, you can call them, talk to their office. You can, if you go down to the Capitol, you can pull them off the floor, talk to them directly. You can also testify. Testifying in person means you go to the Capitol. There are public hearings for each bill. You'll show up to that hearing, and then you can give a 3-minute long testimony about your feelings about any introduced legislation. You can also, if you don't want to actually talk to the senators, it is a little intimidating sometimes, and you still are there for the hearing, you can sign in at the back of the room. Just put your name, check a little box saying, I'm a proponent, I'm an opponent, I'm in the neutral, and that's all you have to do. But it still logs your vote for the committee to see. You can also submit written testimony online. It does have to be 500 words or less, but it is a more accessible option for people that can't go to Lincoln every day. We will show you what that looks like online, but you do have to submit by 8 a.m. the day of the hearing. So it gives you plenty of time, but you do have to submit it ahead of time. You can also reach out to any advocacy organizations that deal with the type of legislation you're looking at. So if any of these bills caught your eye, you can definitely talk to us. We'd be more than happy to help you write a letter or contact your senator, or even if you don't want to testify, but something concerns you, we can definitely include some of your concerns in our testimony as well. Any organization, advocacy organization, would love to hear from you and help you out in that regard. So this is what the Nebraska legislature website looks like. The picture on the left is the homepage, has a lot of links that is sometimes hard to navigate. What we're looking at mainly is the search current bills in the top right, or on the left-hand side drop down, you can go to bills and laws, and there's a little drop down button that says search laws. You can either search by the direct number, or you can search by keyword, which is a lot more helpful if you're just looking for an overall area of, or topic area. The one on the right is an example of one of the bills we're following, which is 1250. It will show you who introduced it, when it was introduced. That little link under text copies that say introduced gives you the exact bill, and gives you all the language for it. And then there's a button that says submit comments online. That is where you can submit your written testimony. You'll fill out your name, your stance, and then you can write 500 words or less why you think this is a good, bad, or okay bill to introduce. And if the legislature isn't your thing, but you still want to support us in different ways, there are many different ways you can get involved. Like Kate mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, we do have our first annual Bike Walk Give Day. It's a 24-hour statewide giving event. for any nonprofits involved in the active transportation world. We also have another webinar coming up in May talking about what you can do in the policy center just to, in general, get local advocacy organizations involved, or just yourself involved in different projects throughout the state. We'll also be introducing the first of its kind policy database, which I have been very happy to work on. It will give you a lot of resources, not only for your local communities, but your statewide communities, so that you can find all of the information needed to further different projects or address concerns you may have. We also have our Learn to Ride classes. I'm super excited to have that be expanded as well. We'll have those May through August. We are working with the Riverfront, if you are in Omaha, to have those be a permanent location during those times. We'll also be expanding to 4 other communities. Then we have our annual Bike Walk Nebraska Summit in September, which we'd love to see you at. It's a day of workshops and discussions for high priority items across Nebraska. So yeah, we would love to further this conversation with you.
Okay, it is question time, and we do have a couple of questions in here in the chat already. Before we dive into the questions and to give you guys all a couple of minutes to drop any in there, I have a question for the policy folks on this, you two on this. Can you kind of explain the timeline process of a bill getting introduced, when a hearing happens, so they know when to look out for submitting a comment and getting involved?
I can take this one if you want, Julie.
Yep, go for it.
So there's a lot, but also not a lot of things in the structure of a bill. So we have what is called a biennium. You can introduce a bill either the first year or the second year, in the first 10 days of session. And then it will be reviewed. It will be scheduled for a hearing. If you go on the Nebraska legislature's website, there is a hearing schedule link you can click on. That'll give you a link to all of the hearings across all of the different committees. Every introduced bill does have to have a public hearing. So the public does have to have some voice in the passing of legislation. We are the second house. We are a very unique state to have the only unicameral across the country, which means that people are the second house. And so we love to see people get involved in that hearing discussion. Once it has the hearing, the committee decides if it needs to move forward or not. If it does move forward, it gets to general file. That's when the whole legislature debates it. If the debate goes well, the bill moves forward. It gets checked in enrollment and review to see if there are any like grammatical or structural issues that need to be changed, nothing substantial. Then it will go back to select file. So the legislature will debate it again, be like, all right, after this review, does it still look good? Do we still like it? If they do, it'll do a final enrollment and review. Again, just grammatical checks, see if everything works out. If there were any amendments introduced, making sure that those are added and it's just one solid bill. If it passes that ENR, then it will go to the governor to either for him to sign or veto. For most of the things, we do hope he signs it, but you never know. Yeah, that's mainly the structure of it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. We're going to hop into the couple questions that are in the chat. Dana's asking one that isn't particularly pertaining to the bills, but it is like a policy and procedure conversation. So our colleagues in Minnesota have introduced a bill that eliminates parking mandates statewide. And Omaha and Lincoln both have extensive parking requirements. Has there been any interest in our state to pursue similar deregulation?
I think I saw David Schoenmaker chime in that, yeah, Lincoln is actually working on this right now. And basically what this means is that currently, again, this is another zoning issue. When you go to build an office building or an office park and you go to City Hall with your plans to get them approved, typically what has been in the past, you have, depending on the size of the building and the square footage and the number of people that are going to work there, you need to provide, there's a very clear calculation of the number of parking spaces that you have to provide. As we know now, so many people are working from home, things are changing, and we want to encourage, people to commute in different ways. And so, if we have just parking everywhere, we can't fill in, we can't get the density, all of these things that we sort of talked about before. So so we would definitely be a proponent of revising those parking thresholds and removing anything that is a mandate on the number you need, but rather it's a case by case based on the circumstances, based on the context, all of those things. So I think it'll have, I would be surprised to see that happen on the state level, although the granny flats and the duplex zoning is happening now, so we'll see. But nothing yet on the state level, but we're really encouraged by Lincoln taking this on and being real progressive in that area.
Okay, next question's from Melanie. Does Kavanaugh's bill sharing grant include, sorry, does Kavanaugh's bike sharing grant bill include e-bikes?
Yeah, I guess by default it kind of does. The bill is just to provide a vehicle for the Department of Economic Development to provide grants for bike sharing. Right now, Omaha's bike sharing fleet is 100% electric, and Lincoln has some electric bikes, I think 25% electric bikes in their fleet. So there's nothing in the language that specifies that it can or cannot be used for e-bikes. I would imagine that is probably not something that would get added in an amendment. Hopefully it will just skate right through, and then the individual communities or whomever receives a grant can work within the system they've got going to get the number of bikes and the number of stations they need. So bring on the e-bikes.
Okay, and then the follow-up question is, where can we find good resources or upcoming webinars about e-bikes? So I will take this one because this kind of falls underneath my wheelhouse of information. So you can go right now, you can go onto our website, and there are a few blogs that we have written about e-bike statutes and policies and the accessibility because we passed the bill last year to be able to correctly classify e-bikes. And so what that did was that defined the national classifications of e-bikes. That's all it did. All it did was create the definition of e-bikes so that cities and park managers are going to be able to have the discussions about being able to allow e-bikes onto their infrastructure, but ensuring that some of those DIY, more moped-like bikes with just a motor attached to them are not necessary, that are more unsafe to be able to be on shared use paths and things like that are not allowed, so that there can be kind of a delineation mark between those two things to ensure that there's still accessibility and use of e-bikes allowed. So Melanie, if you're looking for resources, that's where our blogs are. You can find those in our blogs to kind of get updated on what that process looks like. As far as any other information, we will be rolling out more information this year. This is a huge topic for us. We're getting a lot of conversations about, can I take my e-bike on the trail? People are saying I can't. So we are going to be leading the forefront of the conversation about that to help inform and educate as many advocates and cyclists and municipalities and planners and park managers, whoever is getting involved in these e-bike conversations, because they are booming. E-bikes are absolutely exploding right now. So we want to make sure that we are staying on top of it and things are staying accessible. So our website's the first place to go for information. If you want to get notified of upcoming webinars, we send everything out via email or on social media as frequently as we possibly can. If there are topics in our webinars that we are not touching on, please let us know. We are happy to pull together information and continue to educate the community. That's what we are here for. That's what we love doing, because the more that we can empower and educate and equip, the better we're going to be able to all pull forward in the same direction.
And I'll just piggyback on that and say that to Kate's point about how these conversations are just, the whole e-bike realm is really such a hot topic right now, even on the national level. And Taylor and I will be going out to Washington, D.C. in March to attend the National Bike Summit, which is sort of federal policy. So we'll be out there, and I'm sure that there will be opportunities to, there will be questions from our congressional folks. There usually are about what's going on, what is the deal with these e-bikes. So we'll be meeting with our congressional representatives or their staff on Capitol Hill in March, and anxious to continue our policy advocacy on the federal level for that.
Yes, yes. Okay, are there any other questions around today's webinar that we can help answer? The bills, our strategic plan, anything that you would like to discuss? So moving forward, you will be able to see what our strategic plan, all of this information will be living again on our website. We will have our bill tracker up, available on our website, where so all the bills we just reviewed today, our stance on them, and then as hearings come up and advocacy opportunities come up, we will keep you informed to the best of our ability. So again, we'll be in your inboxes, we'll be on social media. If there is something that we're asking for voices and support, we will be the ones making sure that that happens. So if you want to keep track of any of these bills, our website, we will keep them as updated as we possibly can. As far as any of the other things that we talked about, the summit, the give day, the upcoming webinars, again, we do our best to communicate those as quickly and with as much heads up as possible. And they all is housed on our website, so you can find that there. But we are very excited for our 2024. This is a pretty spectacular team of human beings to be able to be pulling forward. We are well supported by our board. There is a lot of momentum in Nebraska right now for active transportation projects. I think that there's something of like over $50 million in federal grants that have been awarded to Nebraska communities. The vast majority of them outside of metropolitan areas, which is really exciting for us to see that are happening right now. So things are moving in the right direction. And, we get pretty excited when we see things like this town of Sydney doing trail connections for kids' safety to be able to get to the aqua parks. So things are moving along. We can't wait to see what's moving forward. And then, yes, Craig, I will let you can chime in quick on the mobility study that's happening in Omaha right now. And then we will wrap up our session. Let's see.
Thanks, Kate. I had to go find my buttons. I had to go find my unmute buttons. Thanks for the information. This was great, fantastic advocacy. You guys are doing some great work across the state and especially down in Lincoln. So appreciate the topics today. I just wanted to take a moment with people in here to announce that we're working with the city of La Vista on an active mobility plan to look at improving mobility in, through, and around the city of La Vista for all users, looking at trail connections, looking at ADA improvements and non-trail pedestrian and microtransit options in and around La Vista. We'll be starting that project study here and hopefully finishing up by November sometime, but Bike Walk Nebraska is on our short list of stakeholders and looking to get more people possibly involved in some stakeholder outreach groups and things like that. So you don't have to be a La Vista resident. You don't have to even live in the metro, but if you ride the West Papio, you know that it's probably the highest trail use in the area, and certainly with the exit out there in the brewery district, there's a lot of movement. So we're working on connecting up some trails and making it easier for people to get in and around and through La Vista, and would love to hear people's input on that as we proceed through the study. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Awesome.
Thank you, Craig. I really appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of great things happening, a lot of ways for you to get involved in your community. And as you all have different projects like this, please don't hesitate to reach out to us to help be a stakeholder, write a letter of support, or maybe just simply point you in the right direction or connect you with somebody that's already working in that realm of work. It takes a village. There's a lot of moving parts to be able to make active transportation projects work. So we are here to help put all those puzzle pieces together to the best of our ability. Craig, how do they connect with the community, the committee?
We'll be posting stuff out on social media and looking for a stakeholder involvement period sometime in probably May timeframe, in a public meeting in like July. So we're also looking to put out QR codes or posters on the trail and things like that to get input from people once it starts getting a little bit warmer. So with that, or you can also just reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the chat.
And when you say we, which organization are you representing?
So Alfred Benish and Company and Big Muddy Workshop are working with the city of La Vista through a contract with MAPPA directly. So we're actually contracted through MAPPA. It's MAPPA's grant funded study with the city of La Vista.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. We have a really exciting 2024 ahead of us. Please do stay in touch. We hope to see you on our upcoming webinars and involved in our upcoming events. But we will let you go for the day. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.